Hey everybody, I'm Dougall Fraser and I am so excited today. We're getting a little fancy because my next guest is joining us from the island of Cyprus. Not gonna lie, I had to look up exactly where that is, so we're gonna ask him because I may not be the only one. My guest has become a pivotal voice in the self-help community. He is the author of 2 books, Be the Guru, and the new book, Lightworkers Gotta Work. I love him, I adore him. He's also the host of the podcast, The Lit Up Lightworker Show. He is incredible. Please welcome George Lizos. George, how are you doing?
Hello, Dougall. Thank you so much for having me. I am doing wonderful, and I'm so grateful to be here with you and share this space together.
I'm so excited that you're here. And so let's just begin because it makes me feel fancy that you're joining us from the island of Cyprus. So where is that in the world? It's in the Mediterranean, right?
It is in the Mediterranean, a tiny little island in the Mediterranean. It's essentially how my spiritual journey started. It all started here, took me all around the world, and then back here.
So I'm super curious about your spiritual journey because you're very, very open about who you are and what you started with. But I also want to start first with the concept of a light worker because you describe yourself as a light worker. This is sort of a term that I hear a lot of people use, and I'm familiar with it as well, but I'm sort of curious about your definition. What exactly is a light worker to you?
So essentially, a light worker is anyone who wants to make the world a better place by being in it. And in my book, Lightworkers Gotta Work, I coined a new term. I coined the term Ascension Lightworker. And Ascension Lightworkers are old, mature souls who have been incarnating on planet Earth time and time again for the purpose of upgrading the software of the planet, of helping make the world a better place.
Oh, upgrading the software of the planet. I love that. And I think there's like a little bit of a misconception with the concept of light worker. Like if somebody hears that, I feel like they think they have to be like a Reiki master or, they have to do tarot cards for a living. But am I correct in understanding that pretty much everyone on the planet, if you're conscious and awake and alert, is in itself a light worker, correct?
Oh my goodness, 100%. We're all born with a specific life purpose. And when it comes to light workers, our purpose has to do, it goes beyond the personal sphere, it goes beyond just our own well-being, and it extends out into the world. So from a very young age, light workers feel this urge, I want to make the world a better place. They have this strong sense of purpose that extends beyond their personal well-being and extends out into the world. So anybody can choose to step into this purpose if they make the conscious choice of it.
Okay, so this is what is always fascinating to me. 2 things. One of the things that I love about your work is that you never use the word gifted in reference to being intuitive, to being a psychic person. I adore that about you. I do the same thing. Whenever somebody says I'm gifted or something like that, it just doesn't feel right to me because I think every human being is inherently intuitive.
Oh my goodness, 100%. I believe we're all born with the same intuitive abilities. Yes, some people are naturally more open to it because we're all talented in different things, but we all have the capacity to expand that and become intuitive geniuses. There is this misconception that if you are born gifted, if you're born intuitive, then nobody can reach you. And I believe that hard, consistent work will always trump talent. If you have the most unintuitive, muggled, closed-up person that puts in the work consistently...
Did you just say muggle, closed-up person?
100%. So if you have the more disconnected person that chooses to put in the work day in, connecting with their intuition, putting in the work, learning, practicing, putting themselves out there, and then you have the intuitive genius, the genetic genius that was born gifted, and one puts in the work, the other one doesn't, then I believe that 100% the one who puts in the work would eventually surpass the genetic genius because it's all about putting in the work. I coined a new definition of intuitive genius that is skill plus mindset plus commitment. You have the skill that you can develop. You have the mindset that it's all about overcoming the limiting beliefs that society told you that you should believe about yourself. Like, for example, you need to be born intuitive to be intuitive, for example. And then you have the commitment. And the commitment has to do to structuring your entire life to support your intuition rather than the other way around. I believe that mastering our intuition is less about learning yet another process and more about ensuring that we optimize our lifestyle to support our intuition. Therefore, adjusting our diet, adjusting our workout routine, adjusting our home, adjusting the relationships in our lives so they're all supporting our intuitive growth.
And where do you think ego plays into this? Because I'm about to make a controversial statement, but sometimes I think when people say I'm gifted, or they'll talk about their ancestry and their lineage, that their grandmother was psychic and it was passed down, sometimes it feels like it's coming from an ego perspective. And even within the self-help or spiritual community, like mediums have a tendency to say things like, well, all mediums are psychic, but not all psychics are medium. And it's just this hierarchy that I personally think is a little bit ridiculous. I like your approach of we're all light workers, let's support each other, let's share tools on getting stronger with our intuition, not for the benefit of us and accolade, but for the benefit of the planet.
I think this is where spiritual bypassing comes. Now, spiritual bypassing has to do with just seeing ourselves as these awakened, enlightened spiritual beings that have done the work, tick the spirituality off the list, and we're done. But if we allow ourselves to believe that spirituality is like a university degree diploma, you get it and tick, it's done, and you're intuitive and you're enlightened, then that puts a cap on your intuitive capacities. It puts a cap on your intuitive growth, and that's when the ego comes in to sabotage the whole process and take control. We're all born with an ego, and it's just a matter of being aware that we have this ego and we have our higher self. The question is, who's running the show? Who's on the driving wheel? Who's on the steering wheel? If we let go of doing the inner work constantly and seeing ourselves as eternal students, then we allow the ego to take control, to take the steering wheel and take us down this road of seeing ourselves as being on a pedestal and being better than others. If on the other hand, we see ourselves as eternal students and realize that our limiting beliefs, our ego is just like an onion. You're peeling off the layers more and more and more and more, and we're constantly learning, we're constantly growing, we're constantly shedding the fears and limiting beliefs that prevent us from shining through and allowing our intuitive genius to show up. When we do this every single day, that's how we stay humble, and that's how we get to see everybody as an equal intuitive person who wants to do the work if they wish to.
See, I love the way you talk. I love your authenticity. You have such a natural confidence that's all-encompassing for others and within yourself. But I'm sort of curious, so tell me about young George. Where did your spiritual journey begin?
Oh my goodness, let's get a bit vulnerable here. It all began here in Cyprus, in this small Mediterranean Christian island of Cyprus. And that's important because growing up, I was this weird kid that just spent his time out in nature, surrounded in a field of daisies, staring up at the sky and wondering, why am I here? What is the purpose of life? Like, what am I here to do while everybody else was going to parties and like drinking and smoking? And I was this weird kid. And as a result of being so weird, I was bullied a lot at school. And that created this perspective that I'm different and I need to work hard to become accepted. So I strove to be the perfect student at school, the perfect citizen in society, the perfect son of for my parents. And imagine what I felt when at the age of 13 years old, that's when I realized I was gay. Now, at that time, homosexuality had recently been legalized. So there was still a huge taboo around it. Gay people were considered to be pedophiles and criminals. And there was no way I would allow myself to get yet another label out of all these labels that I already had on me. So I'm like, great, I've been doing this for years. I've been changing myself for years to gain other people's acceptance. I'm just gonna do it once again. So that's when I entered the two most debilitating years of my life, where for 2 years, I tried to change myself from gay to straight one step at a time. I tried to monitor the way I looked, the way I walked, the way I thought. I tried to fantasize about women, forcing myself to do that. And 2 years later, at the age of 15 years old, when I realized I couldn't change who I was born to be, I'm like, you know what? I don't have any more choices in life. Like, I'm a human abomination. I won't make it. So let me just make everyone a favor, and just take myself out of the equation. And in what will always stay in my life as a very dark and sad night, I wrote a letter to my parents. I took a pack of pills and I was ready to just put an end to it. And it was in that moment that I surrendered. Because in my moment of wanting to take my life, I surrendered the resistance. I surrendered the struggle. And the answer that was always already there for me had finally become available for me to see. And the answer was, fuck what people think, fuck what society thinks, fuck what others think, and just learn to love and accept yourself exactly as you are. And Dougall, I had no idea how to love myself because all I knew was self-loathing, judgment from other people. But you know how it works. When you are willing to change, when you show up for you, the universe shows up for you. And that's when Louise Hay's books came into my life. You Can Heal Your Life. So
we love Louise.
Yes, book after book, spiritual modality after the other. I just learned to love myself, accept myself, forgive myself, and forgive my bullies, forgive my biggest bully, who was myself. And then eventually come to a stage where I didn't need other people's approval to feel accepted. I didn't need other people for wisdom or happiness. And I came to find all that within myself. And that's when my first book came out, Be the Guru, which is...
Wait. I got to go back to the coming out story.
Yes.
This is so beautiful and so lovely. And you're sharing such an amazing story that's so vulnerable. It's a lot to unpack. So are you telling me that you officially came out of the closet when you were 15 years old?
I came out officially when I was 17 years old to my friends and then progressively to the rest of my family.
So I just want to comment on how incredible that I think that is. You know, I came out when I was 19. I didn't live on an island that was predominantly Christian. It wasn't illegal at the time, although still stressful for me. There wasn't the same level of noise that you experienced. So I just sort of want to compliment young George for being that brave and that courageous. Like, I used to wear my bag of crystals around my neck in high school, but I would tuck it underneath my shirt so nobody could see it. So I really identify with being conscious about the way you walk, being conscious about how much I talk with my hands, like all of these things that I thought were markers for me being weird and different, but I didn't have the courage to do it at that young age. I think that's so incredible. And if I may ask, if you don't mind sharing, what was your parents' response to that? Did they also sort of adhere to that kind of belief system? How did they respond?
It wasn't easy. My mom cried when I told her. Now she's perfectly fine and she came to Gay Pride with me a few years ago. My dad was the last one I came out to. It was like, I think I was 25 years old when I finally came out to my dad. He was accepting at first, but of course he had his hesitations because he was like stuck in his own way, but he eventually came to accept me.
That's incredible. I think there's something interesting for people who have a struggle with whether it's their sexual identity or their belief system, that they start to look out of traditional religion or traditional spirituality. I just know a lot of people that look to metaphysics because it's all encompassing. It's a little more welcoming. You know, weird is a compliment in the spiritual community. It's not considered sort of a strange thing. And I love that your first sort of dose of that was with Louise Hay. That's so incredible.
Yes, especially given all the work she's done. And actually, the reason I went to work for Hay House later on was to give back to Louise and all the authors that their books have helped me on my path.
I think it's incredible that and I think a lot of people watching this are going to relate to this. One of the things that I've sort of marveled about you is that in my work and in my private practice, I have a lot of people that want to do spiritual work, but they're nervous, right? So here you manifest this job where you work for Hay House UK, one of the largest international spiritual publishers, but at the same time, you're sort of standing to the left of what you want to do, right? You're supporting and giving back to other spiritual teachers, and you're within the world, but not quite doing the teaching work on your own. Tell me what made you take the leap to become sort of this spiritual teacher rock star that sits before me today.
Oh my goodness, that's when coming up with the concept of the life purpose and being passionate about the word life purpose came into my life. Until I was 22 years old, I couldn't accept that my life purpose was to become a spiritual teacher, because for as long as I was growing up, I was taught and I was indoctrinated to believe that any spirituality that's not Christian is the work of the devil. And even though I had been working on my spiritual path and I've been giving readings ever since I was 15 years old to the teachers at school, and I was doing it as a hobby, I never allowed myself to accept that could be my job because of all the programming that I had in me. So when I moved out of Cyprus and I went to the UK and I studied there and I unprogrammed all the limiting beliefs that were put in me, that's when I could see my life purpose could be revealed to me. And that's when I made the decision, you know what, I'm going to become a spiritual teacher. So I went to study eventually business management because I wanted to learn how to run my own spiritual business. And after I graduated, I'm like, you know what, universe, angels, spirit guides, I don't want to do a soul draining job. I want to work at a place where my skills will be supported, where I can grow. And just like magic, like the Hay House position came up. So I started working for Hay House for 3 years, where I was able to give myself a card reading at the beginning of the day and have an altar on my desk. So it was really a blessing getting to work for a company that supported my lifestyle, and at the same time, I could do my work part-time. But it brings me back to that common lesson that when we show up for ourselves, the universe shows up for us. And that's why I wrote Lightworkers Gotta Work, because many times people in the spiritual community, they just think, okay, I'm just gonna sit here, meditate, raise my vibration, and I'm change the world. And that's not how the world changes. The world changes when we take action, when we sit in meditation, receive the guidance, and then work our light out into the work.
This is one of the things I adore about you, because I completely agree. I think there's this sort of misunderstanding, like let's take vision boards, for example, that you just put up on your vision board, I'm going to write a book, or you put up on your vision board, I'm going to be in a relationship. And then as an intuitive coach, I say, well, how often do you write? I never write. How often do you date? I never date. Well, that vision board ain't gonna work.
Exactly.
We've got to move some energy to make things happen. You're talking a lot about purpose, and I'm super curious, just sort of as a colleague and as a friend, I have found that there's a lot of misunderstanding with the concept of purpose. A lot of people come to me and they think their purpose or their destiny is going to be in alignment with their career or their vocation. I don't always think that's necessarily the case. You can be like an incredible, prolific artist or writer or musician who's also an accountant. Or you can be a mom of 3 that takes most of your time, and then there's something else that you love that's another sort of slice of the pie of your life. But I'm curious if you think everyone's purpose is going to manifest in their career.
No. The quick answer is no, but let me unpack this a little bit. I believe that, first of all, if someone identifies as a light worker or as an ascension light worker, we have this collective purpose. So I talk about the 4 purposes of light workers. Our collective purpose is our purpose of making the world a better place. So when you ask a light worker, what's your life purpose? I want to help people heal. I want to help make the world a better place. That's our collective purpose. And I'm like, your specific life purpose is way more specific than that. Then our second collective purpose, that's our soul realm purpose. So we have different soul realms, incarnated angels, incarnated elementals, like star seeds coming from different planets, having a different collective purpose. Again, that's a collective purpose drawing from the collective lightworker purpose. Then we have our soul purpose. Our soul purpose is a purpose fulfilled over a series of lifetimes. So let's say, for example, there are 10 lifetimes to complete a soul purpose. The first few lifetimes is about learning the problem. Then the rest of the lifetimes is about taking some action. The final lifetime is about fulfilling that soul purpose. And then we have our life purpose, which is a step towards fulfilling that soul purpose. It's one lifetime. So I believe that we're all born with a very specific mission that we're meant to fulfill. It doesn't mean that that mission has to be aligned with our career. It is just a mission. It may have to do with relationships. It may have to do with mastering our relationships and learning to love and learning to forgive. It may have to do with just like a volunteering experience that we do where we're contributing in some way and gathering information about our life purpose, about our soul purpose that we're gonna get to fulfill in the following lifetime. So it's not connected to our career, but I believe that when we find our life purpose, our career simultaneously becomes more enjoyable because we
100%.
get to feed off of that purpose, because our soul calls for that purpose, because we're born knowing exactly what our purpose is, but we forget. So it's not a matter of finding our life purpose, it's a matter of remembering the purpose we came here to fulfill. And when we do, everything just feels brighter.
So you're going into some deep soul talk that I'm loving, because what I'm hearing from you, correct me if I'm wrong, is part of purpose is also your own soul's journey in getting to know more about yourself and who you are, strengths and flaws, and where that manifests. And that was always my thing with the career topic, because at some point, I hope for everyone watching this, you are going to retire, you're going to step away from your career, which doesn't mean you're not engaged in your purpose. It's deeper than that. And so I love this idea of what my soul is here to learn, how I'm supposed to grow, and how I'm supposed to expand. And then also, when you mention volunteer work and helping humanity, we all have a key role. And sometimes that's just how we interact on the line at the grocery store. And sometimes it's speaking in front of a big group of people. But all of those sort of extensions of energy do make a difference for us and for the planet.
Oh my God, every single day. When people ask me, how do I follow my life purpose? I'm like, take a single action step towards it every single day.
Yeah.
Any of that, because all these small action steps, like being kind to someone, like in the supermarket, or just writing an email, or writing an Instagram post, taking any action step on a single day, those small action steps will eventually add up, creating a powerful momentum of attraction that will bring into your life more people, more experiences, more circumstances to allow you to live more of that purpose and to eventually allow you to fulfill that life purpose. So past lives are life-changing. I believe that a lot of the present life traumas we have and manifest in our childhood are collateral damage of our past life traumas. So we can spend our entire lifetime healing the traumas that we have in this lifetime and not fully resolve them because they're rooted in past lives. And then we have to go back because our body and our consciousness may forget, but our soul never forgets, because our soul is eternal and has expectations.
I love this. So I'm curious about the past life stuff. So I've had past life regressions before, and one of the first time I was regressed, they always ask you, what do you see? What do your feet look like? What is the surrounding around? And I couldn't see anything. And after like 15 minutes, we finally discovered it was because I was blind. Like, she kept saying, well, at least look at your shoes. Like, what are you wearing? And finally I went, oh, because I could hear things. Yes. I could smell things. And I said, I do not have any sight because I'm blind. And what's interesting now is, as a clairvoyant, I'm super visual. If I'm in the middle of a session, like I'm talking about the details of what I see, it's as if sight has become extremely important for me to understand in this incarnation. But I want to know, do you think when we choose to reincarnate, I think it's a choice, do you think we're assigned a task, assigned a lesson, or do you think we choose? So if you were a prostitute for so many incarnations, do you think it was your soul that thought, you know what, I'm going to come back as gay, I'm going to come back, like, I'm going to figure it out in this way, or do you think they sort of hand you a mission, so to speak?
I think it's a little bit of both. We incarnate in a soul group. So we have our soul family and we make agreements together so we can grow depending on what our soul purpose is and depending on what our soul realm purpose is. Okay, so it's partly us choosing to come into this lifetime to learn a lesson or to experience something, and it's partly we've agreed, like a bigger picture with our soul family, to support another into their own life's purpose as well. So it's a little bit of both.
I agree. So I want to talk a little bit about your intuition, how your psychic ability, if that's the term that you use. Yes. Well, you describe yourself as clairvoyant and you describe yourself as claircognizant, correct?
As well, yes.
Okay, so give me how do you define those two terms?
So essentially, if I had to tell you what my dominant clair or intuition type is, it would be claircognizant. Therefore, I just know things, and I don't know how I know things. I just know because I know. And then eventually, I developed my clairvoyance because I wanted to have that clear visual image of stuff. So I just worked to develop my clairvoyance over the years. Right now, I receive messages in both. So the way I usually work with people, so if someone were to come with me for a reading, I usually do what I call psychic clearing sessions. I'm really focused on scanning people's body and identifying stuff they've attracted from their surrounding environment, because I believe that we're born purely aligned to source. And when we are authentically aligned to who we really are, our energy reflects that authenticity. And therefore, we're aligned to our intuition, we're aligned to our life purpose, and we receive moment-to-moment guidance about how to move forward. However, because we have this aura that's like a sponge, as we walk through life, we just attract daggers, and we have toxic cords of attachments to people and residual spatial energy from someone having a fight in that street, in that corner of the street, like last week. Or collective thought patterns that many people are thinking, and we're just hooking into collective thought patterns and picking up on other people's subconscious beliefs. When I scan people, I identify all that stuff, all those, I call them external energetic attachments on their aura, and I'm able to tell what they're related to, and then I help them clear them. And the way I like to work, I like to scan people before I talk with them and before I see them, because I want to be 100% objective, and also to really answer the deeper messages. Because I don't know how it works with you, because when I see people, immediately I start reading what's in their head. I pick up their mood, and I don't.
It's hard not to. Yeah.
Yes, I don't want to bother with the superficial stuff. I want to go deep to the heart of the matter. So I take some time before I connect. I receive everything, channel it, write it down through automatic writing, and then deliver when the person shows up. But essentially, by the end of the session, the client is cleared of all that energetic attachments, and then the energy is uplifted, and they can be able to be aligned to their authentic self and to their purpose.
You said something that I totally relate to, and I understand it because it's sort of shop talk within our industry, but I'm not sure everybody else understands it. You talked about your dominant clair, which I totally get that. So my dominant clair is the fact that I'm visual and clairvoyant, but I'm to understand that we can all use every form of intuition, where it's clairvoyance, clairaudience, claircognizant, but based on our personality type or the vibration of our being, one of them seems to fit better than the others, correct?
100%. I believe we're all born with the ability of accessing all of them, all the different clairs. There are 4 main clairs, but we're born with 1 or 2 that we're naturally more talented at. And I also believe that personally, that it's important that we focus on our dominant clair and master that while managing the others. It's like the economical concept of the comparative advantage. Like, focus on what you're good at, become a master at it, and then manage everything else.
Good point. Yeah. So you're also, this is one area where we have a slight difference of opinion. So I want to talk about it in like a super playful, fun way. You're very into protecting energy. And so first of all, I want to talk a little bit about what your concept is and why you feel people need to protect their energy.
So there are 2 schools of thought about protecting your energy, and I believe both of them are true. So let's bring them out. The first school of thought believes that we don't need to protect our energy because we are protected. We are one with source. We're all interconnected in this vibrational web of energy. So nobody can really attack you, because that means you're attacking yourself. So all attack is self-attack. Makes sense. I believe that is true. But at the same time, the second school of thought believes that it's essential to clear and protect our energy because other people can attack you, which I also believe is true. It's just 2 different perceptions. So when we're tuned in, tapped in, turned on, when we meditate and we feel our interconnectedness with our source, and we feel our alignment with the universe and with other people around us, therefore when we're high vibe, when we're lit up, we don't need protection. That is our protection. We are interconnected with everything, and nobody can attack us. We can only be attacked to the degree to which our vibration is low. So if our vibration is high, we can only be a vibrational match to people, circumstances, and situations that match that high vibrational state. It is only when we switch into our ego, when we lower our vibration, that we become vulnerable to psychic attack, because then we disconnect from our power, which is our connection to who we really are. So the reason I'm so passionate about energy protection is because we cannot be connected to source 24/7. We can be as soon as we meditate in the morning, and then for like some part, if we don't interact with people or like do things online, but at some point during the day, our vibration will lower. And it is in that state that we need to have different tools that we can use to both clear and protect our energy.
This is such a good topic. So I was never familiar with the evil eye until I met my husband's family. And we were at a restaurant once, and I brought up a personal topic like while they were bringing our food to the table, which to me was like no big deal. And David's family was like infuriated. And I was like, what is the problem? And they were like, the waitress is going to give us evil eye. She was like sending money to a rabbi in Israel to like clear it for us. And I have learned, I just wasn't raised with that sort of thought. So I was like, I'm so sorry. I've brought, something terrible on the family. But I think you're right. Like if it's so deep in your ancestry, because I even think it can be passed on from ancestry, not just lifetimes, but literally from like your DNA, it's hard to sort of rewrite that. That's a fabulous analogy you gave there.
Yes.
It's really cool.
Yeah, the rule of thumb is that if you believe in energy protection, even if it is 0.0001%, then you're vulnerable to it. If you believe in psychic attack, you're vulnerable to it and you need to do something to protect yourself for it. If you haven't grown up with these beliefs, then don't bother with it. Just trust in your connection with source, and that's what's going to protect you. I believe that psychic attack and energy protection and all the different spiritual tools that we're using in the spiritual community, we've created to deal with our physicality. Essentially, we're just light that chose to incarnate into this physical world in a variety of contrasting ways. So we are used to personalizing and compartmentalizing energy and creating this game of life. So it is a game. When you perceive things from a higher perspective, you can detach yourself from this game and see that you don't need to protect yourself because it's all a game. But if you're in the game and you've been in the game for a long period of time and you are invested in the game, then play the game.
So, George, I'm sort of curious because this is a completely foreign concept to me, and I describe it as religious guilt. A lot of my clients have had this. My husband had this, like when he bought a deck of tarot cards, that was a big deal for him. When we moved in together and I was unpacking like my Buddha statues and my Kuan Yin, his eyes like doubled in size because in Orthodox Judaism, you cannot have any imagery of another god. It's considered really terrible. And so I know you come from a religious background. What were your thoughts or feelings when you started developing as an intuitive and using those tools that are so charged for many religions?
I think guilt encapsulates this perfectly because as soon as I started getting into spirituality, first of all, I was in the spiritual closet for years and I wouldn't get my tarot cards out of my room because I felt all that guilt. And I remember when I had told my mom there was a single crystal shop in Cyprus that I used to go secretly with my best friend every single weekend, pick up crystals and books. And I came out of the spiritual closet to my mom and we took her into the shop. And then she just looked at the stuff and she would told the shop assistant, "Oh, are these all the devilish stuff?" I'm like, oh my God. Like I felt so embarrassed because there is just so much stigma and so much charged energy around that. And I think it's so important that when we get out of the spiritual closet and when we get into the spiritual path, that we are aware of our culture. Because when we interact with people from cultures that are more open to spirituality, we can end up feeling a little bit judged by them. We can end up feeling we can judge ourselves and feel a little bit guilty as well, or not as good. So it's important to be aware of that and seek to find a community with people that understand you, that get where you're coming from, that can support you in this process. For me, it was my best friend that I came out to him like both as a gay man, but also as a spiritual woo-woo person. And then he came to accept me. And then that's how you come out of any closet. You find one person who accepts you. You trust them. You open up to them. That makes you feel trust within yourself and empowers you, gives you some more confidence. And then you open up to a second person. And then progressively you open up to more and more and more and more, to the point that I transitioned from being a very stuck up Christian, Orthodox Christian. I would go to church and chant. In one religious knowledge test, I got 109 out of 100 because I was so eager to becoming a pagan. Now I'm a Greek pagan, honoring the Greek gods and goddesses. The exact opposite. So it's just a matter finding this one person, opening up to them, feeling less guilt, healing that guilt, working with your culture at the same time to support yourself and your beliefs that are so ingrained sometimes into your system that it took me 22 years to be able to let go of my beliefs that what I'm doing was evil, so I could accept the fact that I was a spiritual teacher and an intuitive. So it's a process, it's a journey, and it's very important that we're very kind with ourselves and find a support system on our way to doing so.
And what's interesting to me about woo is it's all perspective, because every single religion has their sort of version of woo. Like in Catholicism, you're lighting candles to sell your house. You're calling on this, angel to help you find your keys. In Judaism, your destiny is written down in the book of life. But I feel like historically, sometimes it was about control. We want you to stay in this faith, in this community. If you look outside of this faith for anything else, that's evil. And I don't think it was really about evil. It was about keeping people on the same path and sort of in control. It's actually one of the things I love about Shintoism. I think it's one of the only religions that all gods are welcome. Everything is honored. It's supported, which I think is really cool. But it's just interesting to me. I never had that fear that I was doing devil's work or anything like this. But I hear this a lot with people and their spiritual coming out, so to speak.
Yeah.
George, I'm obsessed with you. This is good stuff. I'm obsessed with you. So listen, I know you have a free gift for people. Tell everybody about it.
Oh my God. So I have the Intuition Mastery Accelerator Guide. So if everybody goes to georgelizos.com/intuition mastery, you're going to grab this guide that I share the 3 mindset shifts that you need to have to up-level your intuition. So this is great for everybody who has some experience with giving intuitive readings, with working with cards, but wants to up-level to a more advanced level. And these are the 3 mindset shifts that I've had to make to allow myself to up-level.
Guys, George Lizos, literally, I think one of the most authentic voices right now in the self-help and spiritual community. You have definitely got to check him out. Pick up his books, Be the Guru, Lightworkers Gotta Work. Check out his podcast, The Lit Up Lightworker Show. You are incredible, George. Thank you so much for being here. And I hope we get to work together again in the future, because I just think you're delightful.
Oh my goodness, you're incredible. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful and so honored to be in your presence.